All right. Hello, everyone. Our oh, sorry. Hello, everyone. Our sixth note is Earth Day. Earth Day. It's not just one day of the year, but the beginnings of Earth Day began on April 22nd, 1972, and it's an awareness of the environmental's importance. Schools, colleges, nearly every community sponsored activities to raise awareness regarding the environment. Um, Earth Day continues to be a an acknowledged day every year, and to increase the awareness around the world, not just the United States. Think about you know Brazilian rainforest and a bunch of things. It still exists today. Started in 1972. It's an awareness of the importance of the. Sorry about the glare. The awareness about the importance of the environment and Earth Day, 1972. Sixth note. Okay, our seventh note is a massive, it's not just a federal agency, but it's a state agency too. Environmental Protection Agency, the EPA. And we got a lot of construction projects around Ventura right now. I think it's positive. Um, and you see sometimes they start and then they stop. A lot of times it's environmental damage that they have to look at and study. So the EPA is something for every project anymore, which is a good thing. Um, in 1970, Richard Nixon consolidated 15, President Richard Nixon consolidated 15 existing agencies into the Environmental Protection Agency. Uh, in the 70s, and Nixon really wasn't even that big of an environmentalist. He passed 35 laws protecting the environment. The 1970 Clean Air Act was the first time they ever started to put restrictions on automobile emissions. Now, today, you're going to start registering your cars about every other year. You got to pass smog, right? That's where it began, the 1970 Clean Air Act. 1973 Endangered Species Act, starting to protect wildlife, plants, um, fish that won't be around anymore if they're not taken care of. The EPA is a huge agency today. EPA is so important today. And you're going to get your car smogged every other year, right? Now, I hate to single out, your book does, but to single out one state of the 50, but it is a pretty unique state, huh? Way up north, separated from the other 48? Yeah, not counting Hawaii. Beautiful state, the biggest state in terms of land. And it's during the 1970s that our government really began to take better care of Alaska. Now, we'd had Alaska since 1862 as part of the United States system, and a weird purchase. We bought it from from the Russians. Um, it's so ecologically sensitive and diverse. Think about the mountains. You think about the fishing, the beauty up there with the glacier, and prosperous. Oil was found there in the 1970s, and to my knowledge, even today, every Alaska resident gets a check from the government for a pretty good check for oil. 1968, they found oil. Um, a lot of Native Americans up in Alaska. Some of them Eskimos, some not. The Native Claims Act of 1978 gave 58 million acres back to the Native Americans. And President Carter in the 1980s protected another 104 million acres of land in Alaska. Alaska began to be taken better care of in the 1970s, and hopefully we'll still have those glaciers and all those fish and the beauty of Alaska for years to come. Our eighth note is Alaska. Okay, our ninth note is nuclear energy. Now, after he dropped the two atomic bomb, after he ordered the dropping of the two atomic bombs, President Truman ordered that atomic science be handed back to the scientists. Remember, he had taken it over for the military. Our ninth note is nuclear energy. Now, this was seen early on as the way to go for unlimited, almost free energy. Around the country, people were building nuclear power plants, and it looked like the way to go. And then there was some problems. The first was at 3 Mile Island. The huge nuclear reactor overheated, the cooling system failed. The community had to abandon the area for a time. Residents were affected by radiation, and it led to greater control and awareness about the problems, not just of a catastrophe like 3 Mile Island, but nuclear power has waste. Cooling the reactors, the water that's used there becomes contaminated. So it started to be looked at dangerously. The nuclear power plants we have in California have all been shut down. We have problems with earthquakes out here. I think there might be a couple left, but not many. The dangers are just too great. Now, the last note for this really isn't about nukes, but it's chemicals. In Niagara Falls, New York, a community called Love Canal, they started to notice huge problems. Birth defects, deaths, cancers all over the place. And what they found was that long buried chemicals were seeping into their water, seeping into their ground, birth defects, health issues. They had a long fight with the state of New York. I mean, it was in the news every day. But eventually, the state of New York bought up all the houses, so the people got their money back, paid back the people who were affected medically. And it was a huge deal. The Love Canal tragedy brought to light chemicals in the ground. So, nuclear energy, unfortunately, didn't quite play out like President Truman had hoped. I don't think it's probably done forever. We're going more with sun and wind and renewables, huh? Okay, our last note is the continuing movement. Let's hope it always continues. Although through the years environmental issues have gained support, political and economic issues have limited their effectiveness. There are many lawsuits about environmental issues. We used to have lead in our gas. You see that word unleaded? Well, it might not make much sense to you, but years ago they used to put lead in gas. What was its purpose? It was a cushion for valves. You know what a valve is? And you really didn't need it that much. They improved the valve, so they didn't need that. And it was terrible for the environment. So they got rid of leaded gasoline, DDT. And then more radical groups have started to emerge through the years. Greenpeace, they would go out in Alaska and just get right in front of big ships that are going to do whaling thing. Jobs and Progress have always been seen as an opponent to environmentalism. Environmentalism or jobs? Well, hopefully we're getting to the point with renewable energy, solar, wind, that there's jobs in environmental things like that. Protecting the environment, I hope, will always be an issue in American life. Let's hope it never, if it goes away, our life is, everything's perfect, but I don't think we'll ever be there, do you? We've got the smog, we've got, if you go out on our ocean, on our beach, you see stuff all over, plastic and stuff. So we've got a lot of issues with the environment. But it's really in the 60s and early 70s when environmentalism took off with an unlikely hero in Richard Nixon. Very unlikely. Okay, my 10 notes for today were continuing movement of environmentalism, um, nuclear disasters, and chemicals, Alaska, protecting Alaska, the EPA, Earth Day, environmentalism, conservative response. That conservative response, remember, was in reaction to the hippie movement. Rock music, art in the 60s, and counterculture. All right. Those are your 10 notes. Get them turned in.